I don't have coffee. I don't feel like coffee. It's Saturday evening, not Sunday morning, but for you it is if you're watching this on Sunday. Some people are saying enough with the rants. I don't know. You click on them, so I'll sit here and I talk about stuff. Apparently, that's a thing that interests you. Today, I want to talk about a topic that came up when I talked about Linkin Park and the new singer and stuff like this. So many people, also online, I mean, this is online, but the other online, have said they should have renamed the band. It should have been a new project. And I highly disagree with that. So the question is, we're going to look at some examples. When do you think a band should change its name because they have new members? When is a band not the band anymore? And I don't think there is a definitive answer. And I actually think it depends on the band, it depends on the material. But sometimes it feels icky when a band is named what they were used to, but there's really just nobody in the band anymore that matters. The material is different. So let's look at a few things. I actually think in the case of Linkin Park, so let's go there. Was it Linkin Park? Linkin Park? I don't know. It sounds exactly like the material we fell in love with. The writers are the same. It has the DNA of the band. As far as I understand, there's a new drummer and the vocalist has changed because the previous vocalist died. However, the music that I've heard so far is really going back to the roots. Way more, that's the interesting thing. Way more than albums that have been released in between. The last 2-3 Linkin Park albums were way further away from the original material on Meteora and stuff like this than the material is now. We're now way closer to what Linkin Park used to be. The band has always evolved. So telling them change your name because you have a new vocalist, that's asinine. So is a band... Oh, wait, before we go into this, I have to talk about today's sponsor. Yeah, because apparently these videos get watched, so I had people expressing interest, and I don't want to talk about NordVPN or Dollar Shave Club or some kind of, stupid thing. I want to talk about guitars. So at Guitar Summit, I met these very nice Polish chaps, young guys, that had very nice guitars. And they are so freaking cool, I have to say this, that their company is called Very Nice Guitars. Do you know what they sell? Very nice guitars. It's such an easy, simple business. Guess what you can get from them? Very Nice Guitars. Where can you get them? At Very Nice Guitars. What's the website called? Very Nice Guitars. Link below. So they wanted me to talk about their business, and maybe they were going to send me a guitar and stuff like this. And I said, well, why don't I just talk about it on my Sunday rants and tell you guys a little bit about them. They had a booth and they had, guess what, very nice guitars. They don't have the old vintage nice guitars. They have some more obscure brands, but also Ibanez, higher end stuff. They just have high end kind of one-off custom shops, but also things that are... The camera's going. Bye-bye. Hello? Hello? Do I have to stand like this the whole time now? That doesn't work. Oh! Let's see if it stays there. They also have anniversary models. So, for example, they have a 10th anniversary gem. Now that's super awesome. And I looked at prices online. It's in pretty good condition. Couldn't see anything wrong with it. No dings or whatever. Official case. They even exchanged the pickups so the original pickups don't get dulled. All that. The best prices I found online were €8,000. On their website, 6. And it's negotiable. So they're 2,000 under the cheapest price I could find. They have Acacia guitars from the US, super nice high-end stuff. ESPs, limited, more like, modern stuff, but I mean, they can probably get their hands on other things as well. But if you're looking for a very nice guitar, that's usually in a realm that you couldn't afford, they have them secondhand, but curated by their team, checked by their team, and all the prices are extremely fair and extremely negotiable, and they're extremely nice guitars. Oh no, they're very nice guitars. Anyway, check out the website. It's some pretty cool shit, and they continuously have new cool stuff. If you're looking for unique guitars in a fair price range, very nice guitars might be for you. And next Sunday we're going to talk about them again. Maybe they have some new stuff. So, what other bands can we think of? I can think of one of my favorite bands, at least used to be, Skid Row. Now, Skid Row was big with Sebastian Bach. Those were albums, the third one with him was not great. Bob Rock produced and didn't really put a lot of work into it. But the two famous Skid Row albums are amazing. However, the band had written everything. Everything was in place. And then Sebastian Bach came in as a vocalist and pretty much sang what was written. So was it his material? No. He was hired as the singer for the band, meaning the band has what it takes to do that kind of material even without him. How much does he define the sound of the band? Well, quite a bit, I admit, but he isn't the band. He isn't what made Skid Row. The material was amazing, and if you had another amazing singer, it would still be amazing. So, with them kicking him out because he's very douchey, they kept the name Skid Row. And why not? Should they have renamed themselves? I don't think so. In that case, that's the band with a different vocalist, and it's still the band. Now, Guns N' Roses. That's a difficult one. So the sound of the band is defined by what? By the sound of the vocalist? Okay, very much so. I actually think even more so than Skid Row was. And while the writing and style of Slash, is the drummer replaceable? Well, they did, and it was still Guns N' Roses, so that the drummer clearly didn't define the band. And Izzy, I think, left at some point. I don't know. I mean, who do you think of when you think of Guns N' Roses? I know Duff, I get that, but really you think of Axl Rose and Slash. So if you only take one of them, is it Guns N' Roses? Of course, legally, Axl was allowed to use the name, and then he did and worked on an album for 10 years. And then Chinese Democracy came around. That's the album that he worked on for 10 years with different guitar players who were brilliant, by the way. But was that Guns N' Roses? To me, it did sound like a even more perfect version, more precise version of Guns N' Roses, because it had him and his sensibility for songwriting. But was that more Guns N' Roses than something that Slash did? Because Slash did all these projects under different names. Obviously, what was that? Velvet Revolver? That had nothing to do with Guns N' Roses because it was a different sound. So what defines a band? Is it the sound? More so than the people? Because there are some bands from the 70s or 80s that are now touring and they only have one surviving member. And sometimes that member drops out. Is then the band supposed to stop, but they know the material, they could tour and give? I don't understand. I think to me, it depends on, is the sound still there? But that's also bullshit. I'm lying to myself, because let's talk about AC/DC. Now, AC/DC, I feel, and maybe I feel wrongly about this, should have stopped touring when it all fell apart, when the drummer was caught for trying to kill someone. Wasn't that what was happening? Had a hit out on someone. So the drummer, gone. Malcolm Young very quickly succumbed to dementia and died. And then didn't they kick out their vocalist and then Axl Rose took over? Was that still AC/DC? Well, yeah, they were playing AC/DC songs and Angus was still there. But was that AC/DC? Is what we have now AC/DC? How many surviving members are there? Does it sound like AC/DC? I think it does. So is it still the band even though most of the members are not there anymore? Have they changed in their sound? No. But to me, it feels like they should have just quit. But that's not fair, right? Because technically, it's still the sound. Now, I started making music because of Bon Jovi. Bon Jovi, for me, is massively important. It's what got me into the job that I now have. And I feel that even though John Bon Jovi is an amazing writer, that the sound of Bon Jovi was defined by the writing that he did together with Richie Sambora. Now, let me explain. I love Phil X. He's a buddy of mine, good guy. But he's not really, as far as I understand, involved in the writing. Phil can riff anyone against the wall, which is what the band would need. When Alec John Such left the band as a bass player, I think he wrote amazing bass lines, really busy, and you could never even tell that they're busy because they were beautifully entangled into the arrangements. The sideman guy isn't doing that. He's not bringing himself in as a more active bass player, but you don't necessarily have to. So, new bass player, still the band, right? But the guitar stuff. There were always great songs that had very memorable riffs. Now, what John does is strum the guitar, play the chords, and write a killer song every single time. But what's now missing is the riffs. And it really is. Now, the producer, John Shanks, who's also a guitar player in the band, is arranging it kind of like outlining the chords. So John gives the chords, and there's beautiful, delay parts that are outlining the chords. They are nicely arranged, but the songs don't have a memorable riff part anymore. We can hear the chords and they're beautifully arranged with guitar parts, but it is chordal stuff and not riff stuff. And there was always a beautiful balance between chordal and riff. And the riff element came from Richie. Now, they could do it if they had Phil come in the writing process and say, okay, we got this thing here. Can you think of a really cool riff to, make it all work and Bon Jovi-nize it? But they don't. They haven't done that for a bunch of albums. So to me, sound-wise, that's not Bon Jovi anymore. But of course, it's John Bon Jovi. And I don't care if he can still sing high. He still has a great voice when he has to sing in the register where he can now perform. Got no problem with that. And even, they could go into country, they could go to different areas, which they have done and still be Bon Jovi. But that riff element is missing. So I think the band has changed something has dropped out of the sound. But nobody's saying, well, that's not Bon Jovi anymore, because you see the guy whose name is on the label, right? And the singer is still the same. But is a band tied to the singer? Is that really what it is? I don't think it should be. Or maybe it should be. I really don't have answers. You can see I'm flip-flopping on my opinion here. I really think it depends on the band. Sometimes you can replace the singer and it is still the band. In the case of Linkin Park, where you have the sound is still there. The sensibility for the writing, song form, arrangements, production is still there. In my own experience, I've been working with Rafael Cano's band, Campaign Like Clockwork. And when we started working together, there was Henrik Löscher on guitar, and Martin Henkelmann on drums, and Rafa, and some guy on bass, and I think there was someone else on guitar. Can't remember who that was. And we produced the first album, and then they had a different guitar player, weird dude, pulled the band in a different direction. But Rafa was still singing and writing, so there was a key element. Then there was a different bass player. I think at some point Karol Makora came on. And then the whole band disbanded. And then they came back together. And then we had Paul Krommelbein, killer bass player, laying down serious bass lines. And one of my students, Martin Giemser, on guitar. And they put their flair into it. They put great ideas for like a riff or a bass line into it. But the core element of the band was Rafael Cano's writing and singing. And, not to sound arrogant, but my production, my arranging. So when they brought songs, there was a killer line from Martin, like a really cool ostinato line. And then certain things that the band brought in, even though band members had changed, but we all brought it together into the Campaign Like Clockwork sound through production and arranging. And that's what a producer is supposed to do, I think. At least that's how I see it. And Rafa's style of writing and singing. And then everything got dropped again. Years later, band comes in kind of in their original, well, Karol and Hendrik and Henk and Rafa, those four, original lineup, almost. And me as a producer pulling it together again to get that sound. Now, Henk is in Finland, Hendrik is family man, Karol is family man, so we're finishing this album. And in the end, that's one of the songs at the end. It's Rafael and me. So there's just the guy writing and singing left and the producer. Is it still Campaign Like Clockwork? Now, of course, you don't have a strong opinion on that because you're not a fan. You haven't been around with the band. You haven't bought albums. You haven't fallen asleep to it. You haven't met your girlfriend to certain songs. So you don't have a strong opinion on it. But the point is, what is the actual rule when a band is not the band anymore and should change its name? I think you just have a gut feeling about it. It's not the band anymore. Let's look at Saga. Love Saga. But not the original drummer, not the original bass player. What's left is keys, guitar, and vocals. Is that Saga? No, of course it is. But maybe it isn't. I just think saying Linkin Park should have changed their name. First of all, business-wise, that's really stupid. Also, it wasn't Chester Bennington's band. It was a band of several people, and he was one of the members. Just because he died doesn't mean it's fair that all of a sudden the others can't name the band Linkin Park and write the same kind of great material just with a new vocalist. So that's my opinion. And I think it always depends on your feeling towards what's important. Is it personalities? Is it style? Because Linkin Park, again, has stylistically diverged way, way far away from where they started, and I loved every bit of it. And now they're really back to where they started. Now all of a sudden people are saying that's not Linkin Park. I think a lot hinges on the singer. A lot. But should it? If the writing is still there. Of course, we could look at Queen with Adam Lambert. Is that just a Queen cover band with Queen members? Journey with a Filipino guy, don't know his name. is that journey? Are we actually making this a singer issue? I don't think we should. I don't have answers. I have questions. Think about it. But maybe don't be so hasty to say that's not the same band anymore. Maybe we just listen and enjoy some good music. And if they have a new guy in the band because maybe someone died or they had differences or whatever, give the music a chance. Why not? It's just music. It's not really anything to get really pissed off about. At least it shouldn't. If it's not fun anymore, maybe just stop listening to it. Listen to something else. But what do I know? Very Nice Guitars. Check out their website. I do promote them because they're cool guys. And they have, guess what? Very nice guitars. For now, animals at the end.